Hello, my name is Casey Wheeler and I am a kindergarten inclusion teacher at Arnold Mill Elementary School in Cherokee County, Georgia, and I'm going to give you a data overview of my school over the last 3 years that will include years 2016, 2017, and 2018. The mission statement at Arnold Mill Elementary School is to provide excellence in educating the emerging generation through high expectations, teamwork, communication, and differentiated learning environments designed to increase the performance of all students. And simply stated, we want to meet all students where they are in their learning and take them to where they need to be. The purpose of my data overview is to review the demographic changes over the last 3 years. I also wanted to review the English Language Arts results from our limited English proficient students from the Georgia Milestones exams over the last 3 years. And I would like to identify possible causes for low achievement in limited English proficient students. As we as a faculty look over the next few slides, there are some questions that we should consider. One, what are the strengths and weaknesses in our ELA teaching practices? Two, what can we do as teachers to reach and teach our limited English proficient students? And three, how can we use our professional learning community SMART goal data to provide support to our limited proficient students? So as we look over the next few slides that really lay out the demographics of our school along with the proficiency levels on the Georgia Milestones exams in grades 3, 4, and 5, consider these questions. One piece of data that really sticks out that we really like to see is our CCRPI score. However, the 2018 CCRPI used a different and updated calculation, and they are not comparable to any prior year. I could only compare 2016 to 2017, and that made 2018 irrelevant in comparison to those two. So I did not put that graph in here. Because as stated on the Georgia Department of Education website, any comparison or statement that a school district scores have risen or dropped would be incorrect. And I did not want to put incorrect data into my data overview. Over the next few slides, we will look at the demographic data for our school, and that will include the student populations by race and ethnicity, and also by the subgroups that would be students with disabilities, economically disadvantaged, and limited English proficient students. I will also show you a graph of our teacher population, how many teachers we have, and the level of certification for our teachers. As you can see in this graph, in 2016 we had a total number of 785 students, with 80% of those students being white, 4% being multiracial, 12% being Hispanic, 4% being Black, and 0% being Native American. In 2017, our student enrollment increased slightly to 789 students, with 79% being white, 3% being multiracial, 13% being Hispanic, 4% being Black, 2% being Asian, and 0% being Native American. In 2018, we had another slight increase in student enrollment to 792 students, with 77% being white, 4% being multiracial, 13% being Hispanic, 5% being Black, 1% being Asian, and 0% being Native American. I then took each of those years' student enrollment and put it into a bar graph so you could see the amount of students in each ethnicity group over the last 3 years. As you can see, our white student population group has slightly decreased over the last 3 years, where our Black and Hispanic groups have slightly increased over the last 3 years. I took a look at our student enrollment by subgroups, specifically limited English proficient students, students with disabilities, and economically disadvantaged students. And as you can see in this graph, our limited English proficient subgroup has increased from 2016 to 17 and 18 and has remained steady. And our economically disadvantaged remained steady for the first couple of years in this data group, but then it increased in 2018. I thought it was important to look at the mobility rate of our school and compare it from year to year to see how many kids are moving in and moving out throughout the school year. And surprisingly enough, our mobility rate is relatively low at being just over 10% in 2016. It dropped below 8% in 2017 and then went back up to 10%. But in comparison to other schools in our district and our state, a 10% mobility rate seemed very low. On this slide, we are looking at the amount of certified personnel that we have in our building, and our administration has increased from 2016 and 17 to 2018 with having 3 administrators in our building, 1 principal and 2 assistant principals. Our teacher population was at 50 and then increased slightly and then went back down to 50. So while our student population has increased over the years, our teacher population has seen an increase and then a decrease. We also have support personnel that is below 10, but we do have them to support us as needed. I really like looking at our teacher degree and certificate levels from year to year, and I love seeing that when compared from 2016 to 17 and then to 18, how the number of teachers with master's degree were higher than those with bachelor's degrees, signifying that many of us are pursuing higher levels of education as we educate our future generations. And while we don't have any teachers with doctorates, we do have some with specialists and, of course, with their master's degree. On the next set of slides, we will be taking a deeper look into the English Language Arts Georgia Milestone data for limited English proficient students. This slide is just an overview of our school as it compares to Cherokee County and also to the state of Georgia on the Georgia Milestones English Language Proficient content area. And as you can see that our school is performing at a higher rate with 14 of our kids performing at the distinguished level as compared to 13.8 in the county and then 10.7% in Georgia. Our proficient level students are also higher than the district and state level. And then when we get to the developing proficiency level, we of course want those numbers to be lower, signifying that we have a lower amount of students that are performing at that level compared to that of the district and to the state. And both our developing and beginning percentages are lower than the district and the state. I took a look at the specific proficiency levels in limited English language proficient students and noticed an alarming amount of students in that beginning range in 2016. And then there was a huge decrease in the percentage of beginning students in 2017. But then jumped right back up to a 63.6 of our percentage of our limited English proficient students performing at the beginning level. In looking at the 4th grade ELA Georgia Milestone proficiency levels in our limited English proficient students, it was just the opposite of our 3rd grade ELA students, in that we had a big but not as big group of students in the beginning range in 2016, but in 2017, our percentage jumped to 90% of our students performing at only the beginning level. And then in 2018, it dropped down to 50% of students performing at the beginning level, which was better than the year prior. The 5th grade ELA Georgia Milestone proficiency levels in limited English proficient students was very similar to that of the 3rd grade students, in that there was an alarming rate of beginning students, percentage of students at the beginning level, and then it dropped drastically in 2017. Unfortunately, there were no students that were tested in 5th grade that were limited English proficient, so there's no data for 2018. An assumption that could be made as to why our limited English proficient students are performing low in English language arts could be that they are not at school, that there's a high percentage of absenteeism. However, after looking at the data for the last 3 years, that is not the case. Many of our students that are English proficient are at school. With that said, there has been an increase in the amount of days that students are absent over the last few years. While that number is still low, there has been an increase and can raise red flags of cause for concern. When thinking about the strengths of our school, we do have highly qualified teachers. Our school enrollment is consistent, our mobility rates are low, and our students are performing higher at the proficient and distinguished levels of the Georgia milestones when compared to the school district and the state. And in looking at the weaknesses of our school, there has been an increase in absenteeism over the last 3 years in our limited English proficient students. There are a very low percentage of limited English proficient students performing at the proficient and distinguished levels across 3rd, 4th, and 5th grades. And with that said, that means there are very high percentages of limited English proficient students performing at the beginning and developing levels of the Georgia milestones across 3rd, 4th, and 5th grades. Some questions we can discuss in our grade level meeting is, how can we as teachers support our limited English proficient students? What could be the potential cause of such drastic percentage changes in the percentage of LEP students performing at the beginning level? While absenteeism is not a huge concern, there is a rise in LEP students with 15 or more days absent. So how can we as teachers improve the attendance in our LEP students? And the last question to discuss would be, how can we use our SMART goal data in our PLCs to support our LEP students? The next steps we can take is to discuss the questions listed on the previous slide with our grade level team. And I also want you to look at the list of weaknesses and pick one weakness and create a grade level action plan on how your team can improve that weakness. We can also discuss how we can meet the goals of our school's mission statement by meeting all students where they are and taking them to where they need to be, specifically our LEP students. Thank you so much for your time in looking at the data of our school, and I look forward to us working as a team to help improve our student learning.